Have you ever tried a headless CMS? When using a content management system, developers typically prefer a smooth front-end implementation, and they don't worry too much about the editor's experience, which, as the content grows, quickly turns into a nightmare. As a result, editors hate the headless CMS, and developers don't understand why. With Kentico Content, there's no need for compromises anymore. Content is a cloud-based headless CMS. It allows editors to model the content freely and collaborate in real time with advanced workflows and task management. They can also edit and preview the site directly in the CMS interface. Developers are armed with a durable content distribution network that delivers data anywhere in the world to your .NET app, your Jamstack site, your iOS app, or anything else that you build. And if you need a hand, there's online technical support with an average of 1 minute response time. Visit content.ai/developers. That's content.ai/developers today. You can sign up without a credit card. You can start building fast and secure apps right away with their 30-day full-featured trial, or you can switch to the complimentary developer plan. That's content, content.ai/developers. Hi, I'm Scott Hansel, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Bryant, fourth-year doctoral student at the Georgia Institute of Technology with a specialization in interactive computing and robots. How are you?
I am well. Good to be here. Excited.
I am very excited to talk to you. We didn't know this, but we have a mutual friend who is also a doctor interested in robotics who's been on this podcast twice.
Yes. And I mentioned that to her, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I really like him." So that's an awesome opportunity for you. She was excited.
That's nice. So that's Dr. Ayanna Howard, and if you're interested in robots and hearing about cool people doing amazing stuff, take a look at the archives of this show and look for Dr. Howard's shows, as well as her company that she is doing cool stuff with for robotics and kids. There was a movie recently on HBO where there was a robot doing some stuff. Can you tell me about that movie, Superintelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about a woman who comes into contact with this super intelligent AI, and it's like following her around for the day, and it's determining if humans are worth saving. So she has like this weight of humanity on her shoulders, and there's this one scene where the super intelligence is jumping from different platforms to kind of show the team of computer scientists that, hey, I've outsmarted all of you guys. I've figured out how to move between these electronic devices. And one of those devices happened to be a robot from our lab that they invited me in to come and program, which was super exciting. The filming was already happening on Georgia Tech's campus, and they reached out to a few PhD students who were doing work. And because they wanted the now to be in the movie, and I'm one of the PhD students in our lab who does a lot of the custom motions, they invited me in. I was super excited. I had never done anything but on a movie set before, so I was like, oh my gosh, that'll be awesome. And I got to meet Melissa McCarthy and other people who were in the show as well. They were so excited to have one of the more humanoid robots there. So it was a great experience. Oh my gosh.
That's cool. And the word that you said that people may not have recognized is NAO, N-A-O. It's a humanoid robot from SoftBank Robotics?
Yes, that is right. It is made by SoftBank.
And when you, I'm curious because I wasn't on a movie set once. I was on like a Lifetime television movie, which is not really quite the same. You program this thing. Do they tell you what they want to do? Or do you like literally have to be like, oh, there's a bug. And then you're sitting there while the entire crew watches you reprogram a robot?
So this experience was a little bit of both. So they told me a few weeks before kind of what the scene was. They didn't give me the script for it, but they said this was going to be the back and forth. We kind of wanted to stand up and we wanted to kind of wave and to look like it's talking. They knew it was going to be saying a few words or something like that. So I'm like, okay, so we need some motions that kind of simulate speaking. So we have some traditional things we do when we speak. We kind of use our hands and our heads may wander if it's speaking to a crowd. So I kind of had an idea of what the robot would need to do. They also wanted it to start seated and it would have to get up. So I knew I would have to program it standing up and sitting back down between takes. So I went in with kind of like a starter program, and it's like we can go a few different directions. And as I see the script, I can kind of adapt it a little bit better, fit the timing a little bit better. And so, yeah, I saw a few takes and it's like, okay, we're going to move this around, going to space this out a little bit. And yeah.
One of the things that your specialization isn't just, programming robots like you did for this movie, but it's how we feel about the robot and how we interact with the robot emotionally. I think it's interesting that when you were saying that it needed to look like it was speaking, of course, this particular robot doesn't have a mouth, but you didn't just make it like blink. You thought about how people connect with a anthropomorphized object. So it's got to move its head a certain way and, move its arms and gesticulate, right? So that you'd have a connection with it in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most interesting things I've learned along my PhD journey is just how much we relate ourselves to robots. We don't necessarily do that with many other mechanical objects, but these robots, specifically the ones that we're using, the humanoids that have arms and legs, we tend to give them names. We want to identify them with pronouns. We expect them to greet us, and we expect them to have a certain personality. And we do a lot of research in these expectations that humans have. And when it comes to them speaking, we've also noticed that robots that tend to be more emotional, that tend to have these specific type of responses, we have a greater reaction to those robots. Children relate better when it comes to that type of work as well. And so when it came to thinking about those type of movements and motions, it was pretty straightforward, very closely related to the research we do in the lab.
What does a robot have to look like in order for us to connect to it? Like some of the robot therapist studies that you had done, the robot looks like a white circle with two eyes, like buttons, and just a little slash for a mouth. Is it just two eyes and a mouth? And our brain says it's a thing, it's a person, it should talk to me and have a name.
Right. Yeah. So it has these two circles. It has a camera. The cameras actually aren't even in the eyes, right? So that would be a lot more difficult to take two streams to do what our eyes do. Like our eyes are so sophisticated. To do what our eyes do would be really, really difficult. So we actually use two cameras that are on top of each other. It's a lot better to do. It's easier to do that math than to kind of combine two streams from the human body is a bit more sophisticated than than a lot of the computer vision algorithms that we have now. But it turns out that when robots don't have the expressiveness in the face, we can show emotion in other ways. So we take advantage of using the whole body. And also aspects that humans don't have. We change the color of the eyes. So if it's angry or if it's trying to show anger, we'll change the eyes to be red. And if it's happy, instead of using just a white, we'll use like a yellow, something that's mellow. A lot of the research from psychology and cognitive science that we know about color theory and motion, we take a lot of inspiration from those areas and we bring it into using those type of principles and techniques to have our robot express emotion in ways that we still recognize, even if it's not 100% related to how we express emotion with each other.
Interesting. As you were explaining that, I simplistically was like, well, maybe robots have red eyes if they're mad because of cartoons. But then you went even back, not 100 years, but thousands of years, because we have feelings about color in the world. And I'm sure we did
Yeah,
in art
absolutely.
and cave art. And those things are wired directly into our brains.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to take advantage of all of everything that will make those neural nets in our heads start firing when they recognize something that should be linked, right? So yeah, a lot of inspiration there.
You've been involved in research around robot therapists, robots helping children, robots helping young people. Will people, and I know that we all kind of like, I'm actually going to mute my Alexa before I say the word Alexa. Do we feel connected to Siri and to Alexa and to these robots, or Does everyone feel that way, or just some kinds of people?
We found that there's actually a nice split of people who tend to anthropomorphize their machines and people that don't. So you may know a few people who give names to their cars and want to make their Alexa and Siri
I
and
love that you have
crew.
to whisper because she'll turn a light off and just make it.
Yes. Oh
Don't
my
play
goodness.
music. I'm doing a thing.
Oh yes, but how they'll make the voice more closely to something that they like, and they have it's like, oh, I'm punishing you, I'm turning you off for today. Like I haven't, and it's like, oh, you're giving punishment
That's my
to a
mom. My
to.
mom puts it on. My mom puts Alexa on punishment.
And it's just like, that's very, very interesting. And I think those are things that when we are designing these experiences for kids and even for adults, that's something we have to really consider, because you'll also see that a lot of those people who tend to be more affectionate, more who tend to anthropomorphize the robots and the machines more, they're also more open to using that technology, and they're excited about it. And we see that in kids as well, very, very young. There are some kids who are like, oh my gosh, I want to touch it, I want to push it over, tell me what it can do, all of these things. And there are some kids who we have standing in the corners like, I want absolutely nothing to do with it.
Mm.
Strictly it, I want nothing to do with it. And so it's a nice split, and we notice that we kind of have to account for that in the way the robot greets a child, whether a child is kind of apprehensive or whether they're eager, right? That's going to require two different greetings, really, along with a bunch of other factors that we also consider when we're having the robot think about what to say or what to do in a given scenario.
Mm-hmm. My father thinks of it as an it. My wife calls them she, and I don't feel comfortable with Alexa or Siri being a she because I feel like there's a gendered issue there with me telling my female secretary what to do. So I made my Siri a British guy because I wanted like Alfred, basically. I
Yeah.
want Batman's buddy. It's very
Yeah.
interesting to see how people interact with these things once they've given it a gender, which is completely arbitrary, as well as being agendered.
We actually ran a study on that was published in HRI last year. And what we saw was that even when we purposely tried to design a robot that had no gender, so we had it introduce itself without a name, we had a very robotic voice that had no indication of a male or female gender, and we used a robot platform that was purposely designed to not look male or female, and it still turned out that most participants saw the robot as male. Um, and we also did this where we took the same robot and we gave it a male name and a male voice, and we did a female name and a female voice, and there were less people who saw it as being a gendered robot in the neutral robot case, but still most people saw it as male. And we
Hmm.
thought that was something super interesting. And we posed that to the robotic community. How do we even design genderless robots? Is that even possible? Because even when we purposely try to design it one way, people still have that notion to give it a he or she.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said at the beginning, people want to anthropomorphize. And for people that may have English as a second language, it means like to assign meaning to something that isn't, to assign humanity to something that isn't. We anthropomorphize animals and objects all the time. We want this non human thing to be a human, and then gender and also, oddly enough, race gets assigned to a plastic robot. People might be listening like, how in the world, what does race have to do with anything? Does robot plastic skin color change how one interacts with a robot?
You would think that would be a far-fetched question, but it has actually made its way into robotics research. And we've seen several studies. We've even conducted a few studies looking at race and the way that people interpret that depending on what the color of a robot's skin or metal is. And what we found is that people actually don't tend to racialize robots unless the color of the robot is one that would elicit race. So if the
Mm.
robot is brown or light brown, and we're asking it about a scenario that is somewhat related to race in the
Hmm.
human realm, we see racialization in cases like that. But if we use robots, we did a study where we had a black robot, so kind of like if you have black appliances or like a
Hmm.
black cell phone, a black a black robot, and we had a white robot that was just pure white, the 255 255.
Paper white, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
paper, that was paper white. And we didn't see those differences when we did a
Hmm.
study with those robots. And so we think that there is a different type of preference there. So, how some people prefer the white iPhone over the black iPhone, or white appliances over black appliances, we think that there's something different that's happening in that preference there than what we normally see in terms of race. They may be related somehow,
Hmm.
but we still think it's different, and it's different enough that we didn't see the effects of race brought into the studies that we did when we used robots that weren't directly related to the colors of skin that you typically would
Interesting.
see.
So a white robot and white in the hash FFF, and a black robot hash 000, it's just a preference like whatever. But if it is a on the Pantone skin tone scale, or if it's in the if it's in the Fenty Beauty base kind
Right.
of spectrum, then you're giving them a reason to assign
Yeah.
it. Just like
Yes.
you wouldn't have a traditionally female voice and give it a traditionally male name, it would be confusing. But people
Right.
want to, when you go right down the middle, they try to pick a side, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. They absolutely do. Even if you go directly down the middle, there is a group of people who say I didn't think of it as
Hmm.
being male or female. So there is a group there, but
Hmm.
most people go left or right.
Hey, friends, I want to share a great deal with you from our friends at CBT Nuggets. Their expert IT training where and when you need it. It's online. You can go and check out what you need from IT training, networking, cloud, security. There's 40 hours of new training added every week. And their team is 100% in house. And they're all active IT professionals with multiple certifications. They've got virtual labs, so that's on-demand environments that are tailored to the course material that you're taking. So you get to practice networking config, scripts, queries alongside the course. They've even got accountability coaching. So this is a service that's available to all learners with a subscription. It's a coaching team that is actually integrated with the trainer and the content team, so you can talk to a real person. They'll help you craft a personalized learning plan. You can set goals, and they'll check in to help you keep accountable. Now, they've set up a promotional offer for us. It's a free learner offer, so you can go to cbtnuggets.com/Hansel Minutes. You just sign up. They've made portions of their most popular courses completely free. You just need a Google account. You can start training right away. And if you sign up for the free learner, you'll be automatically entered into a drawing, and you could win a 6-month premium subscription to CBT Nuggets. That's cbtnuggets.com/Hansel Minutes. So how do robots do, not just as therapists but as teachers? Like, it seems like kids would be kind of ripe for having a robot, teach them. They're infinitely patient. They could share really educational videos. There was a robot called a Jibo that came out, didn't do
Yeah.
very well. My
Yep.
son loves his Jibo. I think it's disconnected. It's not plugged into anything. It doesn't do anything anymore, but
Yeah.
it, it had a screen, and he could ask it to show him stuff, and he loved it. It was infinitely patient.
Yes, I love the thought of robots in education. I still think it's an untapped area. I don't know why the companies that do robots in education have been struggling so much. It confuses me. I don't know what the disconnect is, because kids love them. Especially the ones you see most of, like Jibo and Cosmo and some of the other more educational robotic platforms. They're very animated. They were designed to be patient. They could run all day and not get tired. That's something that our human teachers can't do. And I feel I feel for them so much right now. I think the pandemic really gave a great opportunity for the educational robots to really come in and do a lot at home. But I just wish some of those like Jibo and Cosmo and others were a bit more integrated into the curriculums.
Yeah, I hear the frustration in your voice, because here in the last year, Zoom and Teams have become a thing, but our Alexa shows just turn their heads. There was an opportunity here for a robot kind of revolution over the last year. But to your
Yeah.
point, educational robot companies, they're not really flying off the shelves. Why do vacuums fly off the robotic shelves, but not little educational ones that show YouTubes and stuff?
I think that there is uh I wouldn't say that it's a marketing issue, because I think people see the excitement in them. I don't know if there's still a cost barrier. A lot of Jibo and Cosmo, they were still a bit on the more expensive side. I think there's also a learning curve for parents. I did a robot giveaway for my birthday, so I bought a bunch of robot kits, and I kind of did this little giveaway where I gave away. And a lot of the parents had questions even before they would enter a free giveaway. They wanted to know, if I win this robot, what would I have to do to to support my child? Because if they're asking me 1,000 questions and I can't answer them, I don't really like want to put myself in that position. And I think that that's a part of it too. I think we like to buy things for children that we can kind of explain and help out a bit, that we see the value in things that we did as children. You see a lot of that. I think that's a part of the disconnect. So
Here's a thing I don't understand in a box. I hope it
yeah.
doesn't kill you in your sleep.
Absolutely. I think that is actually a part of it. Because I had parents who they wanted, or do you have resources that you can give to me that I can learn along with my child, or point them to go online and kind of follow along? And I think Cosmo, at least, or I'm not sure about Jibo, but I feel like Cosmo did have some online resources. I don't know if, and I think this is just in general with the robotic educational. I don't know if they've caught on to the way that kids like to learn these days. There seem to be more and more visual, more and more want things that are short. So those long videos, I don't think kids are as into the long follow along videos. Watch me do this with me type vibe anymore. They don't want to put little maps together and drive robots around a map. That's not really interesting to them anymore. So I think that we have to begin to think about ways that we can get kids more interested in some of the cooler things that robots can do. Kids ask me all the time, "Oh, how do you get it to see? Oh, can you show me how I can get it to recognize my cat versus me?" Like, they're interested in like the AI type stuff. They want to do the fancy stuff. They don't want to drive it around a map anymore. That's easy. That's old school. That's what their older siblings did when they were in elementary school. They don't want to do that anymore. They want to do the cool stuff. But of course, the cool stuff, to add the cameras and the sensors and all of that stuff, also adds on to the cost and to the parents' barrier and getting it all put together when it comes out of the box. So
Sure.
I
And
think
not to mention privacy. Yeah.
yes, and then that it's just a whole other layer. So I think that those are a bit of the problems that are kind of prohibiting the robots in education from really taking off as I think it has the potential to, or it will eventually have the potential to. But yeah,
Maybe this will be a company that you'll start when you leave academia. Because
who
when I
knows?
learned my first robot in 1984, we had a big piece of butcher paper, and it
Ah,
followed a black line, and we drew a big black line, and it had a big long ribbon cable because wireless wasn't a thing, and it would walk around. And I just bought a robot off of Amazon, and the first thing they had me do is put out a big piece of butcher paper and draw a big black line. And I'm like, 30 years later, line following is it. That's the hotness. But
Yep.
why can't I just put an iPad and give it some legs and have it walk around the house and hang out with my kids?
If only it were that easy, right? I think that's one of the biggest disconnects when people are like, "You're working on the robots." Even my friends, I have friends that let me know on the weekly that I'm working on robots that are gonna be the downfall of society, and and I'm just like, if only you knew. Like, if I had a robot in my house with me, and I have a little robot puppy somewhere, like I would just push it over, like. It can't even tell exactly when I'm directly behind it. I'll just push it over and I'll watch it
Yeah,
struggle to get its balance to get back up. I think for the most part, most people don't realize just how far away we are from having robots that are capable of being anywhere near as sophisticated as humans are. Yeah, there are
yeah,
those few little YouTube videos of the most expensive robots in the world that can only be on for like an hour or two that can do these
yeah.
really, really
With an
amazing, cool
internal
things.
combustion engine that is
But
incredibly loud. You see the Boston Dynamics
oh,
robots; they're so loud.
yes. Yes, and they see those and they're like, "That's it, it's coming." And I'm like, "You have no idea how far away, how long it's going to be." Like the things we really should be worrying about are the concerns that they don't have,
Yeah.
that they don't have right now. So, ugh.
My litmus test, I'll know that I've lived into the world of robots when I can ask it to get me a Diet Coke and it'll go find one and bring it back to me. But they're always too short. They can't pick the thing up. They're smaller than the Coke bottle or whatever. They can't find it. I can't even ask Alexa to do stuff without it confusing light bulbs. Like, because one word sounds like another word, and then you're just like, I'll just turn the light. I'll just turn the light myself.
Oh my goodness, yes,
Although,
and
sorry, if I may, my son, my 15-year-old, wrote a short story
uh-huh.
where Alexa started ordering body parts for itself,
Oh my gosh.
having them shipped to the house, putting itself together piece by Amazon Prime shipping. And the very end of the book, after it's killed everyone in the house, and it steps out onto the porch, it looks around the cul-de-sac, and they're coming out of all of the houses all over the neighborhood.
Oh my goodness, that
So,
is
so that's basically what you're working on
dark.
in your PhD, right?
Oh my goodness. I'm bringing your son's short story
This
to
is your
life.
fault, Kira.
It is all my fault if you let my friends tell it. It's 100% on me. Oh my goodness.
So, what are you working on in your last year? Is this your last year of your PhD?
So I am close to my last year. This would have been my last year, if it wasn't for the twists and turns of what was 2020, the year that came and wreaked havoc on just about everybody. But yeah, so I'm post qualifying exam.
Okay.
So there's the qualifying exam, the thesis proposal, and the thesis defense. So I am post exam, post qualifying exam. I passed my quals after in my second year, at the end of my second year. And since then I've been working towards my thesis proposal, which I will likely do in the fall of this year. So sometime between August and December. So
Mm-hmm.
sometime in 2021. And then I should finish sometime in the next year,
Mm-hmm.
between 9 to 12 months after that.
Does that mean that you have a thesis, you have an idea, or you're thinking of having an idea?
Yes, so I have an idea. And so everything that I've been working towards, everything that I've done since my qualifying exam and even before my qualifying exam up until now is kind of supporting evidence for the idea that I'm going to present at my proposal.
Mm-hmm. Are those secrets? Do PhD students keep those to themselves for either, I don't know, intellectual property reasons or just superstition?
No, so they are not, or at least for me, it's not a big secret because if someone wanted to copy, I mean, they'd have a long way to catch up from all of the supporting evidence that I kind of have so
Mm.
far. But yeah, I've been working on robots in one-on-one scenarios with children. So these humanoid robots specifically. So not the androids, not the non-human like robots, specifically the humanoids, and trying to make them more more adaptive and make them more emotional in their interactions in these certain scenarios. And so a big part of that so far has been thinking about what situations should a robot have this emotional aspect. So when should we even do this, right? Maybe is this even necessary? Thinking about, does this add anything to the experience? I think a lot of people think, computer scientists, oh, they think of something and they just go do it. And I think one of the first questions we have to ask is, should we even be doing this, right? Does this add any benefit to what is already out there? And so my lab does rehabilitation robots. And there was this one case in particular where a humanoid is being used to um, help children through their motor exercises. It's this gamified virtual reality experience. And we have the now there, and it's giving them encouragement, it's giving them instruction as they go through this activity. And but it says the same thing every single time to every single child. And it has this little way that it introduces itself, that it says bye at the end. And the first time the kids see it, they absolutely love it. They're like, oh my God, that was so cool. I've never seen it before. That was awesome. I loved it. But it turns out when they see it for the second time or the third time, it's like, oh, I know exactly what it's going to do. I am now starting to not pay attention. I want to play with it now. Instead of doing what it told me to do, I'm going to not do anything. I want to see how it reacts. So they turn into these little scientists. It drove me crazy. And so I'm like, okay, we have to switch things up. We have to think about how do we get them to not treat the robots like a Christmas toy. That's one of my favorite little analogies, because they start to treat it like a Christmas toy. They play with it for a short period of time, and then they're like, okay, I know exactly what it does. If I turn it on, it's going to say this. I'm doing the greeting with it, right? Like I know what it's going to say. And it's like after a few weeks, they're done with it. And a big difference between the way therapists actually interact with kids and the way the previous versions of our robots interacted with kids was that the robots would do the same thing every time, and the therapists kind of base their actions on the child's progress, how they're feeling that day, what they think is best. It's all of this incoming feedback, and it takes all of that into account. They take all of that into account before they decide what to say, how to say it, what activity needs to be done. And so what I've been doing in my research and my idea, we can take emotion as one of the features that the robot cares about when it's deciding what to say next, what activity to do next, what feedback needs to be given. Is it a good time to give encouragement, or are they doing okay? Should I wait until it seems like they're not doing okay to give encouragement? So thinking about some of these more sophisticated interactions to get the children out of that, I know what it's going to do next, because now you don't know what it's going to do next. Now it seems more adaptive. Now you feel like you can't play with it and do something wrong, because now it's watching you, right? And so trying to move the needle forward so that they can begin to increase their overall outcomes in the end. That's the long-term goal.
Interesting. It makes me think about how if a kid sees like a show on Nickelodeon or an anime and they hear the opening and it's the same opening every time. It's like, okay, I know this. They just start singing along and it just becomes a part of things. So that you don't want the robot to just be the opening of a TV show and it's the same relationship that they have with that thing.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We want them to be adaptive. We want them to learn what expression should be happening. When that expression isn't happening, then it needs to do something or say something, or it could be an indication that something is wrong. There was this one case where a child was crying, and the robot was in there like, okay, arms up, let's go, we're doing this motion. And I'm just like behind the screens trying to turn the trying to turn the program off, and I'm like, it doesn't even notice that the child is clearly in distress. You could hear it from the sound. You could see it on their face. They were in distress, and the robot was just focused on its task. It's like, I'm here to do this exercise, this rehabilitative practice. We're moving these arm muscles, so that's what I'm doing. But we want to be able to, at the very minimum, detect these issues of these problems of distress, especially when they're working with children. We're aiming for this to help both in therapeutic settings, but also in the home. And we know that parents tend to leave children over time. They begin to leave children with robots alone. They begin to gain trust and sometimes overtrust the robots. And as a result, we want them to be able to detect, especially these scenarios where there may be distress, so they can contact an emergency contact a therapist if a child falls and hurts the arm that they were working on. If there's some pain that shouldn't be happening, if you can read that on their face, maybe it's something that it should track and provide a report to the therapist. Those are the types of things that we're looking to gain from the robot being able to analyze the expression of the child and use that information for their benefit overall.
Very cool. Well, I'm really looking forward to reading your paper when you're a PhD.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
We've been chatting with De'Ara Bryant. She's a doctoral student at the Georgia Institute of Technology, and you can check her out at her website, dearabryant.com. We'll have links in the show notes, including to some of the stories about the work that she did on the movie Superintelligence. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.